Welcome back. We're a day late, but we're still here. Wednesday night, January 11th. This is Dynasty Theory. I'm still John Bauer, and that is still Dan Lamagna. What's up, Dan?
Two things. Before I get to my opening statement, do we get a new theme song there in the beginning? Is that new this week?
So our Manscaped promo, that's come to a close.
Okay.
So I had to change the imagery on there, and I believe I then used the song from the weekly episode of The Pivot Point. So
all right.
It's new for you. It's not new for Mitch and myself and our patrons.
I enjoyed it here, warming up to our leads, and with that little pump me up music, man. It's like, can we say 65-7 back-to-back Jack, my Georgia Bulldogs going for a three-peat. Go Dogs. I got, last year's championship swag, new swag on the way. It's becoming a habit. But when my Cowboys let me down, don't at me in our Discord. Okay. I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan. So it's full disclosure tonight. I'm riding the high.
You never like the Cowboys anyway, right? That's if they lose. That's if they lose.
Preparing for the heartbreak.
All right, Mitch, what's up? Steelers, Lions, both missing the playoffs.
I was saying this before we started the show. It's good that the Lions missed the playoffs because now they were going to have to go on the road, play the 49ers, and lose by 40. So it's better now. I could be like, the Lions should have been in. They could have been in the Super Bowl, but sadly, they just weren't good enough the first of the year. But next year, it's going to be good. As a Lions fan, you can't really be hopeful. So this is what I'm using to move forward.
Yeah, of course, they're all coping mechanisms. It's how we wake up to start our day. Anyway, we're still a proud member of DLF.
Sounds like John had a rough morning.
Listen, I was messaging you guys last night, and then obviously, I'm not going to lie, it worked out for the best that something came up for Mitch because I could not keep my eyes open. I was telling Dan before the show, it's every single night. One of our kids, like, I can't tell you the last time I hit my REM. And I look like I'm on like a 30-day bender over here. So I'm just survive in advance, right?
That's right.
Live to fight another day. I see Greg in the chat. I see AJ. What's going on? Tonight's episode, this is going to be a fun one, guys. And I feel like once I start getting my energy here, it might get a little heated. But there are some burning quarterback questions that some of them, obviously, they're going to be a little bit more narrative driven, but we know the impact that narratives have, especially during the offseason, on dynasty value. So I want to dive into it. Like I said, quarterbacks, more quarterbacks. We're going to start off by discussing a few of them. I'll put you guys through the cross-positional and startup rapid fire involving these quarterbacks, and we'll see how we feel here kicking off the 2023 offseason. Dan, I want to start with you. Actually, yeah, let's start with you. So before we get to the quarterbacks, there was a question, and this is why I love having the Discord and the Patreon. Hey, come check out the Patreon. $5 a month. We changed it up for this month. Sign up now, and then you'll get everything in the $10 tier for $5 moving forward, starting off the off season with that baseline there where everybody's getting the same benefits and the same content. A lot of good stuff. Tiers, weekly episode of The Pivot Point. We got the Dynasty Theory Patreon Discord, just conversations nonstop. So a lot of good stuff. Of course, I have to plug it. And I'm running through rookie data. I have 21 running backs in the sheets. I have 22 wide receivers in the sheets. So we're getting deep. Anyway, Dan, how are you approaching a quarterback 2 situation? So we're talking about Superflex 2 quarterback leagues. How are you approaching the quarterback 2 situation on your rosters if you have an anchor quarterback and not much else? In the example I gave, we have, let's say, Patrick Mahomes, Matt Ryan, Zach Wilson. 2 huge question marks there beyond Patrick Mahomes. What are you doing? What are you looking at here? Are you looking to patchwork it together? Are you paying up? Tell the people.
Great question. I'm enamored with the quarterback position the last couple of seasons, more and more each year, just really trying to figure out this NFL carousel of quarterbacks, most ever played this year. JB, Mitch, you guys even got me like re-ranking, going through my quarterback rankings sooner every year. Robert Morris. What's Robert Morris? What quarterback played Robert Morris?
That's where I went to school.
You played quarterback?
Sorry, what was that?
Said you played quarterback?
I know. No,
trying to
I could have. But I'm
Robert
trying to figure out.
John, I may have thought that was like in dentistry school, to be honest with you. All right.
No. So there's one in Chicago, I believe, but this one is in Moon Township, PA, right outside of Pittsburgh, not too far. But yeah, my wife got this for me for, what was it? My birthday, which was a month ago, and of course it's not up yet. So anyway, Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Man, totally derailed the quarterback thoughts there, but that's cool, JB. We love your pennant. Your wife's awesome. We all know that. So kudos to Mrs. Bauer. So quarterbacks, I need to get as many of these quarterback twos that you're talking about. And I do have a lot of those rosters with that anchor one quarterback, a Mahomes-like, and the number two could be anything. I have some of them we talked about, that's the Derek Carrs that are in a little bit of limbo, or maybe, I had Zach Wilson and that went down the tubes, or I was piecing it together with Josh Purdy or whoever it may have been down the stretch of the dynasty season. So as I go into this offseason to go with that anchor quarterback, I am either planning on getting as many of those prospective quarterback twos, because we don't know how this landscape's playing out yet. We have some free agent picture that we're going to be scoping out, maybe some trades happen, who knows, but I'm going to get as many as I can, either via trade. Obviously, we like to draft some rookies. If there's those rosters where I don't have the high draft capital to get the Strouds and the Youngs, hey, I'm going to take some flyers on my Stetson Bennett's of the world later on, just to get some options on my bench. But ultimately, my roster construction is going to determine how aggressive and what I could get. It's what could I draft? What could I trade with draft capital? What could I trade with the players on my roster? But ultimately, John, however I could get 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks on the roster to kind of see how the Jacoby Brissetts, the Garoppolos, the Purdys, you name it, how that pans out. I want to have options.
We were talking about this in the Discord, and I ran through every single team. I listed them out, and we were talking about the quarterback landscape and how many potential openings there could be, and are there enough good, viable, actual NFL caliber quarterbacks to fill those 32 spots? And I think the answer is no, really. We're looking at it right now. And of course, things could swing one way or the other. So before I turn it over to Mitch, I just want to run through these. But looking at the Jets, the Raiders, the Titans, the Colts, the Texans, I had the Seahawks just because I think Geno stays there, but let's say he's not. All right. So we have the Seahawks, Bucks, Panthers, Saints, Falcons. For this situation, for the 49ers, I just put Purdy or Lance. You have to believe that it's going to be one of them. And then same situation for the Packers, looking at Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, obviously, if he's still there. But then you have guys like Carr, Tannehill, Geno. Again, in these situations, they are out there in the wild now. Brady, Jimmy, Ryan, Wentz, Darnold, Dalton, Jameis, and then you have Bryce, Stroud, Levis, Richardson. We're going to be filling those end of the end of the NFL standings there, the bottom, with some really sketchy options. And it's going to be no different than we're looking at Skylar Thompson starting this week. Of course, it's because of injury. We're looking at, who was the other backup? Baltimore, whoever.
Anthony Richardson, right? Is it Richardson or Brown? Anthony Brown.
Anthony Richardson's not there. Is Brown getting the start? Anyway, so Mitch,
maybe Huntley.
Are you looking to be a little bit more proactive in your approach and looking at these lower end quarterbacks? And again, we're not talking about a situation where we're pivoting down from the higher end pieces. We have our anchor quarterbacks and we're using other pieces, whether it's draft capital, whether it's cross positional maneuvers here. Or do you want to wait a little bit and see how it plays out? Maybe pay the inflated price then, but at least we have a little bit more clarity.
I don't want a lot of these quarterbacks is my issue. And I think this is what a lot of guys fall into. Like right now, if I'm looking at the lower half of the quarterbacks, I mean, Kirk Cousins is kind of in a tier above. We kind of know what he is fantasy wise, but I'm looking at this like I want someone I could trust every week fantasy. You pretty much have him. You have Daniel Jones and I mean, I'd probably put Jared Goff up in the Cousins tier right now with how much the Lions have been talking about how he's going to be their quarterback moving forward. So after those three guys, I don't want Carr on my team. I don't want Jones. I don't want Stafford. I don't want Pickett. I don't want Geno. I don't want Rodgers. And so for me, it really narrows down what I'm trying to do moving forward this year. I want to trade for good quarterbacks. That's what I want. Because I think the easiest way to get set yourself above every single other team in the league, in your fantasy leagues, is to have two really good quarterbacks, because there could only be 1 to 2 other teams who even can somewhat go to that approach. So if you have to overpay for one, I think that's what you have to do. If you have the 102 or the 103 in this draft, piece that with a wide receiver and try to go and get one of those upper tier quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not talking about go trade for Josh Allen. Maybe get Trevor Lawrence, someone who I don't think is a top 5 quarterback, but someone who is ascending, very young, someone you could play weekly and actually like have faith that he's not going to just bust her out in 3 weeks and get replaced just like Derek Carr did this year.
So it's always interesting getting varying opinions, because Dan goes and mentions, hey, I want to get 4 or 5 of these guys in my roster. I can stream them week to week. People found success. Whoa, I'm going to time out. Did I put words in your mouth?
A little bit, because I'm not looking to stream them week to week, John. So like Mitch brings up good points. So he listed a lot of names, and some of them, that Danny Jones, Kirk Cousins, we may take them. We're not exactly excited about them. They're in the top, like the QB2 category between 14 and, 24 there. There's only 32 jobs in the NFL. Not even.
But that's what we're talking about, quarterback.
I know, but if you go super flex and each team has 2 in a 12-team league, there's not even 24 jobs in the NFL solidified right now. And then when Mitch mentions getting those anchor quarterbacks and trying to get 2 of them, and I agree 100%, but there's not even in the top 12 quarterbacks I'm confident in. Like Trevor Lawrence, I have is probably 6 now, Mitch. Like, and that's by default. Like, he's not there yet in the fantasy world, but like, he's kind of like what Justin Herbert was in his, early on. So it's slim pickings. But my point, JB, was getting 4 or 5 to hope 1 or 2 pan out. Like, I just got to get quantity to land somewhere, because there's going to be production there, just like there was this year. It's just a lot has to flesh out, and we don't know what that is yet.
But I think the big issue then, and I've seen this firsthand from some of my own teams, and Mitch, you can attest to this. You've been in those leagues, but I go that approach, Dan, and maybe I have one stronger quarterback, and then I'm sitting there with a Stafford, a Daniel Jones, a Geno Smith, Ryan Tannehill types. And yes, maybe one of them's going to pan out of that group. But what was the cost to acquire those other quarterbacks? What was the opportunity cost? Maybe you were in a startup and you weren't able to maneuver around, and there wasn't a lot of activity in trading. Who did you pass up on to take those quarterbacks? Because especially the leagues that we're in, we see, especially early in the offseason when there are question marks around half of the league's quarterback situation, I feel like those higher end quarterbacks, they get bumped up even more. And those mid-tier quarterbacks, they get bumped up even more. We're seeing Kirk Cousins go in the 3rd round of some 12-team super flex leagues. I'm happy to report I have not taken part in a startup yet. I'm staying strong, boys. Dan, I'm Team Dan. Well, I said I want to spend a lot more time on my current portfolio. And there's some that I really want to take my time and review and be able to pay attention to them. But we have a comment here from AJ. I've been trying that strategy, Mitch, using my 102. Can't get the Fields, the Lords, the Tua owner to even budge without 2 first plus minimum.
Which is fair.
Is this a situation then, Mitch, where we look at those super high end quarterback 2s that we've talked about? Well, I guess not super high, mid quarterback 2. Let's stick with a Kirk Cousins, because we know what he is. If you could get a significant plus with Kirk Cousins, would you potentially be looking to pivot off of that 102? I think a lot of people, they're going to be looking at their team need, and they're going to be forcing the Bryce Young, the CJ Stroud. What's going on over there, Dan?
I'm just entertaining myself. Keep going. You're doing good.
Okay. Listen, I pay attention when you're talking. I'm not playing around with any pennants or anything back
I'm
here.
listening. I'm just making sure I have the Cowboys background. It's playoff week, JB. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. And it's a big week because then the season's going to be over. So it's one playoff week for the Cowboys, and then
I'm not ready for it to end, JB. I gotta get at least one win.
I know. But anyway, and we kind of saw this last year with Kenny Pickett, and we see it with these rookie quarterbacks all the time. Sometimes it pans out, but more often than not, you might be better off going the safer route. But then you look at, well, JB, if you went the safer route with Russell Wilson, don't remind me, okay? I don't need to hear that negativity. But I think that's an opportunity. It's going to be very difficult to move off of a 102, 103, 104 type pick and get one of those higher end quarterbacks. I think you guys need some fidget toys. I'm all over the map.
Well, I'm chomping at the bit
really,
here, JB.
really quick though. One player that I think you could obtain, somebody like Dak.
And I think that's the key. So AJ brings up a good point. He's taking the strategy that Mitch has. He's trying to get one of those anchor quarterbacks, and every league's different, and we're all in multiple dynasty leagues. Hey, if you get 1 out of 8, you got it in one league. So you got to try in all your leagues. If you're just in 1 or 2, hey, try aim for the moon, and the worst that happens is you land amongst the stars. So you got to identify the stars next. And JB says, hey, it's Dak Prescott. I can't get those big guys. Dak might be a little bit more attainable, and I think that's where we have got to evaluate, because every season comes up, and certain guys let us down, and certain guys rise and surprise us. So we all got to go with our guts a little bit. We got to start, forecast, and hey, this is the draft capital. These are teams that are showing some good momentum. Who do we believe in? Is it, Mitch, the Lions fan over there, man? Hey, Jared Goff, is he just in the right system? They believe in him. The organization's behind him. Hey, if I could get 3-4 years of Jared Goff with good production in Detroit, is it Russ Wilson? He let you down this year, JB. That doesn't mean he's going to next year with some good coaching. We saw what good coaching did for Trevor Lawrence. Sean Payton
Russ is already on that upward trajectory over these last 2 weeks. The quarterback too. So I'm still buying.
What do we always say? You can't have take lock, right? You've got to be able to adjust. And I don't think that's any different in the quarterback position. Maybe the Giants are trending up with Danny Jones. We believe Geno's going to re-sign again in Seattle. So there are some guys that are going to, give you maybe a few good years that, hey, if you want to just solidify that QB2 position, sometimes you got to settle a little bit, and then maybe the stock's higher down the road and you move them, and sometime later on, you get your Trevor Lawrence.
I certainly think that it does. You could find a balance between both strategies. What Mitch is talking about, what Dan is talking about, because there are two different viewpoints there. But overall, it all comes down to your specific league, how they value quarterbacks. If you're in a league that you have to add significant draft capital to the 102 for a Fields, Lawrence, or Tua, now you're investing too much draft capital in those quarterbacks, and you're still not even getting into the Mahomes, the Allen, the Hurts, the Herbert, the Burrows. So we're still not even in that upper echelon. No disrespect to Fields, Lawrence, or Tua, but I think you have to find that balance. What makes sense for you? If we're giving up too much draft capital to solidify these quarterback rooms that, again, not in the top 5 or 6, that could cause an issue down the road.
And I've been in some startups, John and Mitch, with these two co-hosts I know that sometimes hoard quarterbacks in drafts. So, they take 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So you got to be able to pivot. And you guys know a lot about pivoting from what I hear on the weekends.
Let me say, first of all, yeah, pivot all day, every day, baby. But also, Mitch, I'm thinking back to that big Gold Cup league, the 60-team league. And in that draft, are you on mute?
No, I'm just agreeing. I'm just like vocally being like, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so what we did in that, we took 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the startup, and luckily we were able to trade off of several of them because that bottom was falling quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So we went with that approach that Dan had mentioned, having several of them, and a few of them panned out. But again, it would be interesting to go back and look, what did we pass up on in the startup? What could we have moved them for at the time that would have made sense? And you don't fall victim to those landmines. So it's an interesting conversation because I think you both hit the nail on the head in certain regards, looking at it from going high end, using the draft capital that you have, packaging up, or looking at various quarterback twos and seeing if you can find somebody that helps you out along the way.
And JB, we're talking a lot about the higher end. We're talking a lot about the middle tier. And then again, is wanting to get depth and get more options on the plate. I think you go to that next tier where you look at San Francisco as maybe the end of, I don't know what tier you want to call them, but Garoppolo's got to go somewhere. Lance still has question marks. Purdy is becoming a real thing. You know, John offered me a second round pick for him, which I rapidly declined. But so John, maybe we're thinking alike. You know, something's gotta give there. And then, you know, guys that I don't really like, but someone's going to give them a chance, or they're going to be in a good backup situation with an opportunity if someone gets hurt. The Jacoby Brissett's, the Andy Daltons, the Sam Darnolds, the Baker Mayfields, Desmond Ridder, Jameis Winston. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are wanting to play. So I think it's good to stash a couple of them on your bench as well.
I'd rather move off of 90% of those guys than stash them.
On a deep dynasty bench, you don't want a guy that could potentially be a starter or a great handcuff for a guy that gets hurt when we just had like 60 some different NFL quarterbacks play this year.
If I'm lumping them into the 4 or 5 or 6 guy, like, sure, if they're going to be an end of the bench guy, fine, great. If my bench is deep enough, but trying to rely on them. I mean, here's my issue.
Who said rely on them? Mitch, he's putting words in my mouth tonight.
Okay.
Like, you know, I'm saying they have value is what I'm saying.
It took 21 minutes for you two to get into it. It took a little while longer tonight. I expect better, but do you want to start Andy Dalton even if he does start? No.
Who said I want to start Andy Dalton? I said I want options on my roster instead of these ocean bottom players that you're taking, JB. You're trying to steal my ocean bottom strategies.
Who am I taking?
Well, you're obviously not taking these quarterbacks with some potential to start. I wouldn't mind Andy Dalton this year on my roster. He was very helpful for dynasty rosters this year in certain cases. When you need a bye week player, you got injuries, and all that happened this year.
Well, believe it or not, there are more exciting things to talk about today than Andy Dalton. We spend 20 minutes talking about these quarterback twos. One thing I will say, additional context, the 23 second that I offered Dan for Brock Purdy was the 214 in a 14-team super flex league. So it wasn't a mid-second, a 12-team league. Obviously, there was some additional context that I wanted to provide.
It was lowballing me, Mitch.
I could see it. Yep.
I blasted out a bunch of 2/3 for him, and
it's okay. I asked Dan, asked John today to send me a trade and be like, this is gonna be really good to talk about on the show. And guess what? I didn't hear a word.
Listen, but between when I'm going to let everyone, full disclosure, Monday, Tuesday, I go into the office now. Wednesday, I'm at home, navigating through my work schedule with the two little maniacs that I call my kids it's a sight to behold. Okay. So going between the Discord, work, the kids, who I love dearly, let's not take that out of context, but I'm in the sheets. I just told you I got 43 rookies in there. All right. Mm-hmm. I don't have time necessarily look at what I can send you.
Your two other important kids are feeling neglected here, John.
Bit.
Don't forget about the rest.
We try to do it for the show, but what can we do? It's all right.
I know. Well, we'll get to it eventually. Mitch.
Yep.
We see the narrative running wild. Tua Tagovailoa. Is there any concern for you that he steps away from football this offseason?
No. I don't think he's actually going to step away, but the narrative is what matters here. So I don't want him on my rosters because of the sheer fact, what if something bad, I'm not wishing it. What if he has another concussion? What happens to his trade value at that point? It's already hard enough to trade him because, believe it or not, I've tried to trade him off a few rosters because I'm trying to pivot to just some other quarterbacks. But the problem is all it's going to take is one more concussion. And no one's going to want to trade for him. And so that's the problem, is to where I believe he's going to play. He's going to play next year. Hopefully he plays for 15 more years. And he's as good as he was this year, because I've already admitted I made a huge mistake not valuing him high enough this past offseason. But the worry is always going to be there now with, I would say, 50, 60% of the managers that are in your league. They're going to be like, no, I can't trust him. He has concussions. We have seen players quit over these concussions before. And so it's why I just can't, I'm not willing to buy into him for any reason. And then I'm looking to move off of him because I think I could get those same stats from other players that don't have that looming over their heads.
Dan, you have the red flag. I don't know if you're going to throw it or if you're just grasping it, holding it tight.
What's those new insurance commercials that must watch Dynasty Theory and have incorporated the challenge flag into the commercials? You know, the dad that's afraid of the spider.
I don't know who it is, but I enjoy them.
Should I challenge you, Mitch? Do you want the challenge, Mitch?
You can. You'll be wrong. You'll lose this one, but it's okay.
Oh, I threw the challenge flag, JB.
JB,
right, do you hear Mitchell here? Now, Mitchell was like anti-Tua at one point. Then he's all high on Tua, and now he's a worry word. You know, he's like Mrs. Sorensen. You know, normally the ladies that worry. No, it's Mitch instead. So I need to talk to the missus at some point, Mitch. You're worrying too much.
Okay.
So my answer is heck no, I'm not worried about it. Troy Aikman had like 8 concussions, 9 concussions. Then he retired and said concussions had nothing to do with it. This year I'm concerned. Right now I'm concerned because, yes, the narrative is there. It's like an injury. It needs time to heal. And I don't think Miami's handled it well. And he hasn't had time to heal. And it's sad because Miami's in the playoffs now. And I think they're doomed this week. But he's going to heal. He's going to have a good offseason. I think if you buy him low now, you buy him because I think he has a ton of years left. And people are so afraid now. I think now's the buy now window. Now, to your point, Mitch, if I have him, I'm not going to trade him low now, but I'm going to hang on to him. Miami's going to have a good offseason. He's going to be throwing touchdowns to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle again and lighten it up at certain points next year. And at that point, I'll move him and get more for him. I do think there's some concerns with Tua, but it's not about career ending in the next year or two concerns. So I'm on board. Give me some Tua. If I have him, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to move him, but I'm not giving him away, and he's not going at a discount.
Nobody's talking about giving him away, but
Mitch
also
wants to give him away.
Mitch, you want to give him away?
What is his current value? John, say what quarterback does he kind of match up with? I haven't looked at your tiers or anything. Give me one.
I actually, another thing that I did today, add to the list. Holy cow! I like it. I mean,
he's probably a top 12 dynasty quarterback, right?
He's right there. He's right at 12 on KTC Fantasy Calc. He's right there.
So that's pretty good. Why would you not want that on your roster?
Okay, so what?
I'm not saying you, JB.
Would I rather have
Mitchell
Tua
Sorensen
or Kirk Cousins? You give
Tua.
me Kirk Cousins today, I'll take him.
JB, come on,
that's
JB.
a little
JB.
too low for me. That's a little too low for me.
That's my point, JB.
I think it's what it's going to take to move him, though. Like, believe me, I've been the one that's tried to trade him over the last few days.
So now's not the time to trade him, Mitch. You got to hold him and wait.
I don't want to hold him.
The value will rise like early next season.
Can I say though, one complaint I have, and Dan, I can appreciate you turning the clock back, and I can appreciate your Cowboys fandom. Troy Aikman retired in the year 2000, right after Y2K. All right, the game has changed. The way people are focusing on concussions has certainly changed. Tua has been in concussion protocol now for 17 days. I can't remember. I can't remember another player being in concussion protocol for going on 3 weeks when his team is in the wild card round of the playoffs. So I like Tua. I think he's a warrior, right? He comes back from the injury at Alabama. Is he ever going to play? You know, I like him. I think there's a lot of passion there, but there is going to be. I side with Mitch in terms of, and let me get it out before you throw the flag at my face. I side with Mitch in terms of I like those liquid assets, right? And that was something that obviously a completely different situation. But one of my concerns with acquiring somebody like Deshaun Watson for off the field reasons was I thought that because of that, you would automatically limit your potential trade partners if you were ever looking to move him. Is that the case? Maybe not. Hedge. I like that. Throwing some things up on the screen. But you know, with Tua, it is going to be in the back of people's minds. Not just is he going to retire, because I don't think he retires. I think that is overblown. I don't want to say anything's impossible. So let's say
Hedge.
2 to 5% chance, right? Listen, you keep oh my god, you guys drive me nuts. You are worse than my kids. How old was I when I had you two? That's what I want to know. But do I think he retires? No. But let's say he goes out there week 1 next year, week 2, week 3, and has a concussion. Mm-hmm. What happens then? You not only
the doom and gloom tonight on the show.
No. I always like to talk about the potential range of outcomes. And I talked about what I thought the chance was that he walked away this offseason. Minimal, but not zero. But we have to talk about the potential for re-injury. This dude's had 3 concussions this year. So there's got to be something. And Dan, maybe you can talk to this. I don't know. But there's got to be something with, is it the way he plays, the way he hangs under the, something's going on there.
I think it's a combination of he hasn't had a chance to heal. I mean, a concussion's like an injury. It hasn't had a chance to heal. He's had some hard luck. He's fallen some hard ways. And I do think Miami just hasn't handled him well. But I think he's going to have an offseason to heal. I think Lady Luck's going to be a little more on his side next year. And I think he's going to be fine. I really do. So no doom and gloom here. I'm rolling with Tua. I think he's going to be healthy, fine. Too much drama for me, JB. Too much drama.
All right. So, Mitch, with that Kirk Cousins conversation, you made it very clear you're not acquiring him at cost.
No, there's no way. If his cost is over the 102 and the 103, there's no chance I'm going to do that.
So if you can get quarterback 12 prices, you're out.
He's gone. Yeah. Someone offers me the 102 or the 103 today, and you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of the rookies in this draft. I would move him in a second.
That was actually one of the trade polls that popped up in our Discord, and it was 103 or Tua. And I said, if it were me, because the number of leagues I have, my minimal exposure to Tua overall, I would take Tua over the 103. This person came in and said, well, I'm in 5 leagues. This would be my 3rd share. So 60% exposure. I mean, strictly value, it's Tua. I think it is. But I mean, you're going to have a lot more potential trade partners with that 102 or 103 as opposed to Tua. But if you remove all of this concussion stuff, this is a completely different conversation. Well,
yeah.
We're not even having the conversation then.
No, we wouldn't. He would be a locked in top 10 quarterback.
Would a healthy Tua retire this offseason? That would make for a thrilling conversation.
I think I'd rather gamble on his health, looking at he's in a good system. He's with great talent around him. It should only get better with a good, if they have a good offseason, versus gambling on, maybe a fragile Bryce Young who may be undersized and, all the uncertainty of who drafts him. And it's probably going to be a bad team because it's going to be someone that takes him higher. I think there's a better chance of Tua winning your league and giving you some good years. And then to your point, Mitch, hey, when there are the opportunities to get out, you get out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on Dan's line of thinking here, the only thing you really need to do is pick up his backup. And if you do that,
sure.
And if Tua does have another concussion scare next season, that backup quarterback's probably going to be playing a lot of games, and he's probably going to give you 70% of the points that what Tua gave you. And so, I don't think it'll be Teddy Bridgewater again. It'll be someone else.
Unless it's Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah,
Mitch. He burnt me this out.
But I mean, that's how I would attack it. Is if I normally don't go out and get handcuffs for my quarterbacks because I think it's kind of easy to go out and get one of those kind of backs. But if I had Tua, that's what I would do.
Well, Dan, I want to put you through the rapid fire right now then. I was going to save it for all 3 of these quarterbacks at the end of the show. Okay. What was that?
I said we're skipping a rapid fire. Okay.
No, I'm hitting you with rapid fire right off the bat.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're skipping to it. But go ahead.
All right. I don't know.
You always go out of order of the show notes, JB. You're throwing me.
Well, because whenever the mood strikes me, I switch things up.
Is that what you say to Mrs. Bauer?
There's so many ways.
I know, like, how do we answer this?
Answered, and you took. Listen, I run a nice PG show over here.
I didn't
All
say
right.
anything beyond
Yeah, you
PG.
I'm not getting myself in trouble here. So anyway, would you, Dan, Dak or Tua?
Dak.
Tua or Watson?
Tua.
Tua or Lance?
Tua.
Tua or Kyler? Rapid.
Kyler.
Tua or Fields?
Fields.
Okay. So, I mean, really, it seems like you are fairly in line then with that quarterback 12 price.
Mhm.
Now, if I could go cross positionally, and Mitch, I'm going to include you in this because maybe it will change a little bit here, getting away from the quarterbacks. Mitch, Tua or Drake London? 12-team Superflex.
I hate that offense. I'll go Tua. Like, I don't want to, but
Dan, do you go Tua as well?
It's tough, JB, because there's no context to your question, what your roster needs. Like, I'm going to normally take Tua in a startup draft before London because that's the way I'm building my roster. But if I could have stronger quarterbacks, I do believe in Drake London. So Tua is my answer, JB. But for the listeners, that could change depending on the context of a draft, a trade, how you're building your roster.
Yeah, I would say 99% of the time I'm taking Tua, I think.
Tua or Sean Tucker? I already know.
Tua.
Tucker. Dude, I love Tucker. So just so everybody knows, JB went through and we have like this whole rookie draft spreadsheet thing, right? And so I went through and I've been watching the running backs. I actually have all 22 film, which is really cool to watch. I love Sean Tucker. Like, you watch him and like the one thing that jumps off the page is you're like, that dude's a running back. There's other guys you watch in college now, and you're just like, he could probably be a slot wide receiver. You watch Sean Tucker, you're like, yep, that dude's going to do very well in the NFL. So,
And I said 99% of the time. I'm going to take Tua, I think 100% of the time.
I'm taking notes, Mitch.
Over Drake London.
Sean
Mitch,
Tucker, I'll move him up in the film study here.
Now, I already know what's going to happen because I like Tucker. I like Tucker a lot.
You do? Yeah.
And you're going to be sitting there saying, I love him. Look at him. Boom, boom, boom. And then he's going to go into the NFL. He's going to bust. And I'm the one that's going to take the heat. It happens every year with somebody. Anyway, Mitch, Tua or Jamison Williams?
Tua.
Wow.
Dan?
Unloyal Detroit fan there. But same thing as London for me. I mean, it's Tua. But
Mitch, Tua or Devontae Adams?
Oh, Tua. You can't move Adams.
You might not be able to move Tua.
That's true. They could both, be on your roster until they retire
Dan?
next year.
closer, but still Tua.
Yeah, I'm taking Tua over those receivers that it looks like they're valued somewhat similarly. So, obviously now would not be the time to look to move Devontae Adams, but overall, Mitch, DeAndre Swift or Tua?
Oh, DeAndre Swift.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Dan?
Because
you're worried about injuries, but you're not worried about made of glass.
Because
Swift.
I know, no, he is made of glass. I don't want him on my team next year, but I know I can move him. Like, I know there's going to be a value bump at some point for Swift.
I'll take Tua and his value bump that's coming, Mitch.
All right. And then one more here. Najee Harris. Mitch?
I was reading comments, but it's definitely not Najee.
If the Steelers improve that O-line, I might drink the Najee Kool-Aid again next year.
So what is your answer to that question?
So it's probably going to be Najee.
I'm still taking Tua. So maybe I need to go Tua shopping.
Maybe you should.
I need to get my fishing rod out, see if I
I'm
land
in some
any
leagues with
dolphins.
you that I will send you some Tua trades.
Well, it might just sit then. It might just sit.
Exactly.
Because listen, I got a lot going on, man.
Obviously.
And I'm the only person in the world that's busy. Nobody else is busy. Anyway, all right. So Tua, no concern over retirement. Again, it's a narrative that people are going to push. And I think a lot of it's going to be social media driven because they know it gets clicks. And guess what? I'm going to put out a clip of this episode on YouTube, just this Tua segment, And the title is going to be, is Tua retiring? See if it gets us 5 extra clicks or so. All right, Dan.
Ooh.
Tiny Tim over there. Kyler Murray. What are you doing with him? Because right now, it sounds like
Dan and his 0 shares. What are you doing with him?
It sounds like the timeline there. He's probably going to be on the PUP list to start the 23 season. How long does that go into the season? And when he is healthy and available, are there any after effects there? Is he going to be as mobile as he was? Do they even play him? They're going to have a new coach, new general manager. Hey, let's let him rest because our team's garbage. We're halfway through the season. We're not making a push here. So what are you looking at here with Kyler Murray?
Yeah, I think I got some good notes here and some strong feelings, as Mitch knows, as he mentions, 0 shares. I would not expect him to have the same explosion when he returns, not right away. We've seen it take time for players. If we're looking at the quarterback position, Dak Prescott's a great example. He didn't run when he came back really. And, I watch every single Dallas game. He's starting to run more now, but he's not quite as, a runner like he was before, but has gotten better over time. So I don't expect that right away. I mean, same thing, other positions. Michael Gallup doesn't have that explosion right away yet. I think Gallup will be better next year. Chris Godwin even says, hey, I don't have that same, kind of burst yet, getting better every week. So it takes time. So I think by 2024, you'll see the old Kyler. Am I acquiring them at cost, moving them at cost? Like, I do have 0 shares, and that's for a reason. So I am always moving Kyler. I have always moved Kyler until I have a reason to buy. Will we have a reason to buy in the future? Maybe. Let's see if they could get that head coach, GM, the direction of this organization better. But right now, dysfunctional Arizona, the size of Kyler, health have all been reasons for me to always pass, sell, and this current situation does not help.
You know what? B Hart in the chat says narrative season, and we did this episode a few years ago, Mitch.
So much fun.
I think I want to do it again maybe next week, but like a running back narrative episode, and I'm going to spit narratives at you guys, and you can say, fact or fiction, and then get into it or something. But it's narrative season, and I feel like the narratives. B Hart. Don't jump the gun here. That's our grand finale conversation here. He says Bears drafting Bryce, right? Well,
slow down, Ben. Slow down.
And then AJ says he's very interested to see who comes in as the head coach and offensive coordinator. Tongue twister in Arizona. So it is going to be interesting. Mitch, you've made your thoughts on Kyler Murray fairly well known, and overall, really it is an injury that's going to linger into the 23 season. What's that team going to look like? I'd be shocked if they were good. I think there's going to be some growing pains there. And if they're not competing halfway through the season or 5-6 weeks into the season, why not let Kyler really be fully healthy? So with all that said, based on his price, I am lower than consensus on Kyler. And I know, Mitch, you're lower, but that's like low.
I mean, let's just take Kyler out of it, okay? You tell me we have a quarterback who relies on his rushing ability, not rushing all the time, but his athletic ability to do his job as the quarterback. That quarterback wrecks his knee, and he's not going to come back for a while in the season. When he comes back, more than likely, he's not going to be as athletic as he was. It's an older team with older weapons. They've already said they want to move DeAndre Hopkins. And you're going to tell me that this guy's going to all of a sudden be a pocket passer for a little while until his mobility comes back. I don't care if it's Kyler. I don't care who you're telling me. I don't want that kind of quarterback. And so it just happens to be the one. See, the reason why I brought up Sean Tuck, because I want to be like, hey, I do like some players in the NFL, even though John always accuses me of hating every player. Like, I just don't like bad ones. And so it's not really my fault.
We all know when Mitch is out on a player, he would sell for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like about Kyler Murray, like Mitch did about DeAndre Swift. Like before, when I took him in the rapid fire over Tua, part of that was I always feel like I can move Kyler. We were in a startup last year, and I did take Kyler. I drafted him. I had like pick 103 or something. I don't know if it was our Champions League or whatever it was. I think I ultimately did trade him maybe for Tua or Dak or somebody, but I drafted him even though I didn't want him because I feel how Mitch, we feel the same, but I knew his value is there and I can move him. So that's how I feel about him. But moving Nuke, the direction of this organization is really interesting, Mitch, because like Nuke still has great football left in him. He may not be, he may be a declining dynasty asset, but he is still a guy that could win football games and win fantasy leagues short term. So if Kyler loses that, and then what does he have? It's really going to be interesting to watch Arizona. Although I do think their coaching staff can improve because I don't think Kingsbury was a good head coach.
Yeah.
The way I'd be looking at this, and obviously it works better if you have a larger portfolio of leagues, but if I had Kyler Murray rostered today, I'd be looking to move him at that quarterback 10 price that I think a lot of people would feel comfortable having him at.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the 23 season approaches, especially if Pup is on the radar to start the season, hey, I want points. I think it's going to shift a little bit, and Kyler's price is going to be maybe not necessarily a buy, but at least a little bit more neutral. So that if you are a Kyler fan longer term, then that's going to be the time to acquire. I don't think you go out and acquire him today, especially if there is any potential, hey, Sean Payton might be going there. I almost called him Gary Payton for a second. I don't know if Gary Payton's showing up in Arizona anytime soon.
Sean Payton's the one thing that would attract me if that became official. Like if that became official, I'd be like, okay, I'm listening now.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people. And that's why there's kind of that glimmer of hope right now. And then what if there is a speedy recovery? What if he doesn't start on the pup list? This is just me speculating. JB, the gentleman that works in commercial real estate, said this is the prognosis because clearly, I have my medical degree.
And although I agree with Mitch that, and you, John, like, now's not the time I don't want to acquire him, but is that the time to buy him? Like if you believe into the Sean Payton narrative and, Ben said before, hey, it's narrative season, and it is, but I'm always riding that narrative. I don't buy into all the Twitter narrative and I'm not like hooking in, but I'm trying to form my own narrative to help my rankings for next year. And if I think Sean Payton's going to Arizona, I'm more interested in Arizona players than I would be prior. So do you get him thinking, hey, that could happen? Because once Sean Payton signs there, you probably ain't getting him as cheap.
But it's like Mitch said, it's not like Kyler Murray just was underperforming and he's healthy, and now we get the spice of life in Sean Payton. It's also a 5'10" quarterback who relies on his legs for a lot of his production, probably losing one of the best receivers in DeAndre Hopkins. And then do they look to shop Zach Ertz? Is James Conner on the move potentially? I think it's going to be a really rough 23 season. When we go through our 23 projections, Mitch, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Trey McBride with 160 targets or something like that. That's how I see it going.
Don't get me too excited over
and
here.
Greg Dortch.
All right. So, Mitch. Kyler or Dak?
Dak.
And listen, it's a lot of the same names here because a lot of these guys want to spend time. We talked about those lower end quarterback twos to start off the episode, but now we're talking about Tua, Kyler Murray, and then we're going to talk about Justin Fields, all relatively in that same tier for a lot of people, not necessarily us. But so you have Dak there, Kyler or Tua, Mitch. Dan, don't worry, I'm going to come over to you. Kyler over Tua. Kyler or Watson?
Watson.
Kyler or Lance?
Kyler, I guess.
And then any of these guys over Kyler. Not in no cop-out answers like I usually give. Well, I prefer this guy at his current price. Don't pull a John, okay?
Yeah.
So would you take any of these guys over Kyler straight up? Pickett, Daniel Jones, Goff, Cousins. Yeah, that's good.
Nope. I would personally try to move Kyler and get something added to Jones or Goff, and I'd be more than happy. But no, I couldn't trade him straight up for those guys.
Yeah. To save you the rapid fire, I think I agreed with Mitch on everything except for maybe the Watson one. I would take Kyler over Watson.
You would still take Kyler, and is that due to just the upside in Kyler as well as the Peyton narrative, or is that just being down on Watson, especially what we saw here in the 22 season?
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for it for Watson. I just didn't see it. I didn't see any improvement game over game. And yeah, I'm a little bothered by the offseason, the off-field stuff.
Right.
Cleveland, I've got some concerns. So I'm just leaning on Kyler's ceiling a little bit more, and I'm just going to be patient.
All right. Mitch, Kyler or Kenneth Walker, 12-team Superflex?
Kenneth Walker.
Dan?
Walker.
Kyler or Barkley? Dan?
Barkley.
Mitch, Travis Etienne or Kyler Murray?
Oh, Travis Etienne. I love Travis Etienne. He's the guy next season. So real quick before Dan chimes in, that the redraft guys are going to love. He's going to be like, this is the back that's going to break Dynasty or DFS, whatever.
I hope he is, because remember that box of autographed rookie cards I got last offseason?
Yeah.
He was one of them.
I like it.
Was he?
I don't know. I got T. Higgins one in one of those boxes. I don't know what to do with it, but
I'll trade you something for him. I think I got a Trace Sermon and
Travis
Sam
Etienne?
Ellinger.
Close.
Anyway,
I'm going to go Kyler.
okay. So it looks like overall, I don't think there's anything too crazy. For me personally, I'm taking anything down to the 104 straight up over Kyler. I'm taking Tua, Watson, and then all the quarterbacks above. I have Kyler lumped in there with Trey Lance right now, even though there's certainly question marks there, and that's kind of that question mark tier right there. And then below that, it starts to get a little dicey at times. So overall, I would love to hear some comment on the video and hit that like and subscribe button, guys.
oh no, we did it.
But I did the
voice. You did.
Yeah, the sarcastic voice. Like, I don't care what people do. I don't care. All right.
Yes, you do.
Dan, yeah, I thrive off of subscribers. All right, Dan. Justin Fields. The Bears have secured the first overall pick in the 23 NFL draft, thanks to the incompetence of the Houston Texans. Do they go Bryce Young? Do they shop Justin Fields? Do they get an absurd return for that first overall pick and build around Justin Fields? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to be rational here, but it is the Chicago Bears, so anything is possible. But if we're thinking along the lines of what we would hope would be a well thought out front office, I think they will definitely, and they should, a good organization would heavily discuss this and really weigh, what is available at quarterback and what they have in Justin Fields. They should know better than anybody else what they have in Justin Fields. But I would lean or say, no, they're not going to draft a quarterback. Again, unless there is some surprise and trade that shocks the fantasy world. But Justin did really come into his own this season. I'm interested to see if the dysfunctionally inherited Bears, because their past GM really left them a hot mess. And I'm not really confident where they're at right now, trading a second round pick for Chase Claypool and
the
some of their
32nd overall pick for Chase Claypool.
Oh, that's brutal. And letting an elite linebacker and Roquan Smith go. And I just really concerned about the direction of this organization. So I have a lot of concern, and I'm going to be watching really closely this offseason to see if they're an organization that could build around him to keep him healthy. Do you really invest in the O-line? Do you invest in getting him the weapons he needs? Because he had no one to throw to last year, and it is a guy that I'm really concerned about his throwing. I mean, it's similar to Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, where we've watched, Lamar still really not evolve as a passer. Maybe there was little glimmer of hope when he had Bateman and Andrews and everybody there, but it just really hasn't come together. And we're seeing these running quarterbacks get injured. So there's a lot of risk baked in. You roll your eyes, JB, but there's a lot of risk baked in between the organization, between health.
There's a lot of pocket passers that are injured too.
Yeah, but
it's
elevated here when you watch these games and they're taking these hits, and he's taking a lot of hits. I mean, I watched every Bears game because every DFS lineup I had every week, I'd play about 5 lineups, and I always take a Justin Fields lineup because that ceiling is so high, and he did win Millie Maker lineups this year. But as I watched those Bears, because I put my dollars where my faith was in him, man, he took licks a lot more than those pocket passers, JB. I mean, he was limping, gimping. He struggled. He was in pain. He's a tough kid, man. I respect him, but there is some risk. But so that's all I'm saying, JB. I'm just saying there's some risk, and I need to see the Bears do some good things around him. I will roll the dice on him. I like him more than the quarterbacks that we talked about tonight. But the Bears, please help us, Chicago.
There is no concrete evidence to support the fact that Russian quarterbacks get injured on a higher rate than pocket passers.
JB,
Sure.
Is there more evidence when Byron Pringle's one of your top receivers and you have no one throw to and you have to run all the time?
I do think there's a thing to where
That's a different
certain
conversation.
players know how to evade hits better than other players, and Justin Fields doesn't do well at evading hits. I mean,
That's fine.
dude gets
And
lit up, but no, I don't think he's more prone than anyone else, but his playing style does lead to getting lit up more than someone like even Lamar. When Lamar gets hit, he doesn't get hit like Justin Fields does.
And I think that's my point, John and Mitch, I really like the Chicago Bears to help this kid out, because don't you agree? Like, he kind of has to take those hits almost. Not that he has to, Mitch, but like for the Chicago Bears to win a game this year, he had to sell out.
So here's my one thing. We say this about Justin Fields a lot. Daniel Jones had just as bad as wide receivers as Justin Fields had. He did have Barkley.
But isn't he much better coached?
Tremendously better coached.
Is he?
Like, they protected
So
Daniel
are we
Jones
completely
more this
giving
year.
up on the Bears coaching staff there?
I need
But
them
we're
to prove
talking
something
about a
this
coach
offseason.
of the year candidate in Brian Dable.
As we should, without a doubt. And but so we're giving Dable all the credit and nothing to do with Jones. So are we saying that Fields needs to get a better coach to get better then? So is there
Doesn't need
any
better coach? Well,
But that's the thing, right? If the coaching is staying the same, why are we going to buy into it for next year?
but
If
I
that's
don't know
the
if it's
only
just-
reason why he's going to move forward.
I think front office has a little bit more to do with it, because I give their coach credit. Like, the first 6 games of the year, we're all scratching our head. Where's the Justin Fields potential that we had? And their coach made great adjustments. But that front office has to stop trading, second round picks for
You got Claypool.
dead receivers and giving away your elite linebacker. And what they did with that O-line going into the season was just, we knew it was going to be a train wreck. So unlike New York, where they're building around Daniel Jones. They didn't get all the pieces this year, but they protected him. They managed the offense. He didn't have to do all of what Justin Fields had to do to win games.
It's very true. That's a very good way to lay it out. Do we have any faith the Bears are going to be doing this for Justin Fields moving forward?
Which is my point. I need to see that this offseason.
Yeah,
They need to get some things right. Something.
It's hard because I think he definitely improved as a quarterback this year. But the wide receiver talent was so bad, like you kind of have to grade him on a scale. But at the same time, I don't think he improved at all as a passing quarterback. I mean, there was a time to where like John and I had the over on his 18 touchdown passing prop. And I'm like, he's not going to make it. And he ended up getting really close to it. But there was a time I thought he was going to finish with like 10 passing touchdowns.
It didn't hit.
No, it didn't hit.
I'm just seeing that.
No.
But there was a year-over-year improvement. Was it a drastic jump? No. But that's also taking into account the first X amount of games where that offense, it was just not even bad. It was horrendous. It was atrocious. And then they had their mini bye and they kind of bounced back a little bit and let Justin Fields do Justin Fields things. But I think it's a combination of things there. But I want to get this back to, what did the Bears do with that first overall pick? Again, I don't want to talk in absolutes. And again, we're going to see that a lot. Well,
they're drafting Will Anderson. If they're
Agreed.
at 101, they're taking Will. And I will, if I could put a bet on that, on like, I could get out of it when the Bears trade, but if they don't trade, Will Anderson will be on the Bears.
So I firmly believe, though, if they keep that pick, they're not taking a quarterback.
No.
Should they, like Dan said, should they do their due diligence?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I had no issue with what they said. There was a quote, they said if we're blown away with a quarterback, I have no issue with that comment.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields shouldn't either.
Lions said the same thing about Goff. They were like, Goff's our
Right.
quarterback, but we're going to turn over every stone and try to improve our team. That's what good franchises do.
Like if Channing Tatum comes to my front door and says to my wife, "You want to hit the road?" Yeah, upgrade. Yes. First overall pick, Channing Tatum. Improve the offense around you. But no, I think we saw enough from Justin Fields. Now, here's the thing. Like you take a quarterback at 101 and you move Justin Fields. I think people are being very unrealistic out on those streets, those Twitter streets of what teams are going to send to them for Justin Fields. So where did Justin Fields go in his draft class? What was that? 11th, 12th, 13th, whatever it was. They're not going to get more today going into his third year of his rookie deal whenever the Bears, I don't think they have all that much leverage, but you have a far better chance of getting a greater haul in return for that first overall pick because you have control of their salary for at least 4 years, probably exercise that 5th-year option in many situations. But I don't see a situation where the Bears are going to get the return that a lot of people are hoping if they would move Justin Fields. Do your due diligence as a franchise, because I think it would be obviously suboptimal not to, but ultimately I think Justin Fields is a Chicago Bear. I would love to see them move the pick, get extra draft capital, get something around him. Christ almighty, get something around him.
They got Chase Claypool.
Oh my God, he's a piece of but listen, we're talking about
What are we talking about?
We're talking about Dante Pettis, Equanimous St. Brown, who's back in 23. They're giving another $1 million.
Yeah.
Byron Pringle, once you pop, you just can't stop. The 78-year-old rookie Villas Jones, N'Keal Harry. I'm probably gonna get yelled at because I'm shouting here, and my kid's gonna wake up. Good going, Dad.
Yeah, those receivers aren't creating any separation. They should just clean house. I mean, they need a whole wide receiver crew to help this kid out and create some separation. So again, unless their homework says, unless they think internally this kid's just not going to evolve as a passer at all, like if they're really down on him, they know they can't keep up this pace running the offense this way, then maybe you do look at a CJ Stroud and they surprise the world and there's some kind of trade or something. But I just think he did show enough this year where they're going to believe in this kid and they're all in, and they just got to get him help.
Build around him. See how he progresses in 23 with some legitimate weapons. Okay. And if he doesn't, then you can explore, because you'll have an early pick again. Then you can explore something in 24. But to throw out then, let's say they go Bryce Young at first overall. That team's not going to grow and get any better with the weapons around him. Little Bryce Young, it's not going to work. So I still think, I think there is little risk. We had a good conversation in the Discord the one day about the risk that Fields presents. Right now, I think there's little risk in his job security in 23 at least. If you want to pivot off him, I'm all for it. Fine. He's highly valued. Obviously, you can get a higher end quarterback and maybe something in return. Higher end being obviously not as high as Justin Fields. So I'm not talking about Jalen Hurts or somebody up there, but I don't think you should move him just to move him because you're worried about that risk. JBG, Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears week 1 through week 18 next year, barring injury.
See, he'll probably miss a game or two.
barring injury. Or when he's benched because they're 17-0 at that point in the season, or 16-0, and they're going to rest him for the last week.
No, they played the Lions twice.
So definitely 2 wins there. Anything else on Justin Fields? We went over a little bit. Surprise, surprise.
I like Fields.
Yeah, I mean, like everything I have against him is not against like him. It's the franchise that you kind of have to buy into. You look at last year's draft, they drafted Velus Jones and then Ebner to help him in the 7th round. So are we going to say that they're going to go draft all offensive players? They're definitely not if they keep that 101. So they're going to have to trade back to try to add pieces. So that's just what kind of scares me here.
And their defense is horrible. I mean,
exactly.
this is a bad roster right now.
Yep.
So they need a lot of work.
Yeah, but again, to speak to that, if you move Justin Fields, you're not getting a great return.
No.
And if you're looking to build in other ways to solidify your defense, maybe, or your line, either way, Bryce Young's not going to turn that team around. CJ Stroud's not going to turn that team around. But again, you need those clicks. You need that traction on Twitter. You got to throw something spicy out there. Oh, that's a spicy meatball. All right.
Final thoughts.
Anyway, for the 188th time, man, I'm throwing accents out there now. My Italian heritage is coming out. Dan, what do you got for our listeners? January 11th. It's going to be a long offseason, boys.
Hey, a lot of offseason to look forward to, and we do, but I'm still in playoff mode here. There's still the fantasy football to be played right now in the moment. Anyone in the Discord that wants to, do anything postseason, I will be putting a playoff DFS from DraftKings in our Discord either tonight or tomorrow. I signed up for an NFFC draft, doing some underdog drafts. So there is a lot of football to play if you're not quite ready for the dynasty startups like me. So a lot more football, boys.
Mitch, what do you got?
It's startup season. John mentioned that next week we might do narrative. We're not going to do narrative. We're going to do startup strategy next week, and it's going to be awesome.
That's right. And we do have some data. We have 3 or 4 startups that people in our Patreon have taken part in. A few of them are, I think they're all essentially Dynasty Theory Patreon Discord leagues that I'm able to sit on the sideline and just really relax. So we'll be getting that data together. You know what? I might even have some fancy spreadsheets for everybody next week. All right.
Hope we have a pie chart.
We will bring your
charts.
Bring your appetite, because we're going to be discussing some pie. All right. We hope everybody enjoyed the show. So next week, startup, the week after, maybe that's our narrative conversation. It's going to be a long off season, a lot of great information, a lot of great conversations. And these are conversations that we're having all the time on the Dynasty Theory Patreon, the Discord chat. It is fantastic. It's $5 a month. Come check it out. If you do not find value in it, bounce, but I think you'll stick around. I think you'll like it. So yeah, there you have it. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody next week. Peace.